Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to be discussing my top 10 books of 2024. We're just gonna ignore this stupid hair. I've been working on my hair and it just refuses to cooperate. The first book that I want to talk about is Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas. I had high hopes for this. Sid Bookworm, this is one of her favorite books. It is written by Sarah J. Maas. I love most of the books in the ACOTAR series, so I thought I was really gonna love this. And I did. I will say, I've now read the second. The first is better, in my opinion. But in this book, we're following Bryce Quinlan. She loves her life. She's living her best life, partying, drinking. She has good friends. She has a good relationship with her mother, and she lives in Crescent City. And one day there is a murder within her circle of friends, and it derails her life. And 2 years later, she's still trying to kind of start new, start fresh. She's changed her lifestyle. She no longer drinks, she no longer parties, and then there is an attempt on her life. And it's very similar to the attack on the other people that were murdered, and it was never solved, the first murder. An angel, a fallen angel, Hunt Athalar, is assigned to watch her every move. He's going to protect her, and they start to investigate what happened to the person that was murdered in her life. She wants to know the truth, so it is kind of like a mystery. It's very exciting. It is a chunky book, but I was never bored. We really like Hunt. I didn't like Bryce for a long time, but she really grew on me towards the end of the book, or maybe more towards the middle of the book. I tabbed this. I had a really fun time. This was a book that I wanted to carry everywhere, and it made me cry multiple times. I had a really fun time with this book. Now, I don't necessarily think that this is great fantasy. It's not the greatest book, but I had a really fun time with it, and it did make it to my top 10. And these are not necessarily in order, except for the last books. They're the top ones. So I will continue this series, and I'm gonna read everything Sarah J. Maas writes. I really want to read in 2025 a Throne of Glass series, and obviously continue ACOTAR. So love this book. I thought it was really fun. The next book I want to talk about is very exciting because I read this before it blew up on TikTok, before it was in all the stores. I bought the indie version on Amazon and loved it. This is also a chunky book, but again, I was never bored. This is a very information heavy book. There's a lot going on in this book. Especially for the beginning of this book, you're pretty lost. I didn't know what was going on. We're kind of thrown into a story, not knowing what's going on. In this book, dragons soar into the sky and become moons when they die, but on rare occasions, these moons fall from the sky, causing great destruction. In the first book, we're following Rave, an assassin for a rebel group who is saved from the imprisonment by Khan, the king of the Burn, who appears to know her intimately despite her lacking memory of their shared past. As Rave spends more time with Khan, she must confront her fear of emotional connection and heal from both physical and emotional scars to unlock the secrets of her lost past. So I like that this is not enemies to lovers. This is like lost memory. And the romance is good. It is a romantasy, but it's not just romance. It's not just that. There's so much more going on, and you have these cool dragons and a really unique story. So this is just so good, and I cannot wait to read the next one. If you have not read this book already, I know everyone has at this point because now it's in every store. I recommend it. The next book I don't have physically, but it is in my Amazon cart. I've seen this book on Kindle Unlimited and finally decided to read it because Jan was gifted this book, and I was like, okay, I really want to read this book. And that is The Har by David Sodergran. I've read like 4 other books by him. I really like his writing. This is a horror, but this is a very sad horror that is also about love. Like, it is so good. You would not guess it by the cover because the cover is pretty gross. And it is gross. All of his books are really, really gross. Like, there are scenes in some of his other books. I was like, oh my God, that is disgusting. But his stories are good. Now, in this book, all of his books take place in Scotland, which I also really enjoy. Mariel has lived in this little fishing village of Witch Haven her whole life. Her husband is dead and has been dead for a while. And there's this company from the US that's going to turn Witch Haven into, I'm not exactly sure if it's hotels. They're going to make it this, they're going to take down all these small village homes and turn it into something. I don't really remember. But they're like evicting people from their homes. And it's really sad because there are a lot of elderly people there that have lived there their whole lives. And this company is just kind of taking over and like threatening her if she doesn't leave. Sad. But she refuses to leave. And one day there's this fog that kind of comes up from the river, and there is a creature that she finds that brings her joy and sadness and wreaks havoc on a bunch of people. And it's very gross, but also very, very heartwarming. And it is about love and death and getting a chance to see the person that you lost one more time. It was so good. Like, I was really surprised by this book and how much I loved it. It made it to my top 10. It is gross, but had a very, very heartwarming at the same time. And we're just really cheering for Mariel, and I loved it. I like this author. I want to read all of his books, and they're all like shorter reads, and they're all very exciting and very gross. But this one so far is my favorite. And if you like gross horror, but that is also very sad and heartwarming, I recommend this book. And it is on Kindle Unlimited. The next book is a series. I'm going to count these as one book. So it's top 10, but if it's a series, I'm just going to include all the books. And that is Sun, Serpent, and Star Spear by Geneva Monroe. I don't know why these books don't have more hype. These are so much better than so many romantasy books that are hyped up on TikTok. These are so, so good. A cursed kingdom, a fire singer seeking vengeance, and a prince who is not what he seems. Under the silks of her circus troupe's tent, Alira dances with fire. She disguises her gifts as She disguises her gift as showmanship, but longs for answers about why she has a power no one else possesses. Somewhere in the city of never-ending night, Prince Cal is looking for a girl who burns the brightest. Only she can stop the horror inflicting his kingdom by a sadistic lord who controls the mind of his victims. When Cal spies Alira, he knows without a doubt that she's the most beautiful, dangerous thing he has ever seen. More importantly, she's the fire dragon he has been waiting for his whole life. Moments after Cal serendipitously enters Alira's life, a loved one's gruesome death sends her on a path of vengeance. Cal will do anything to protect his people, including lying to Alira about who he really is and promising her the answer she seeks. But if Alira trusts the undeniable spark between them, could it turn out to be the one fire she is unable to tame? The second book comes out in April, and I cannot wait. The second book left us on this crazy cliffhanger. You have dragons, you have dragon shifters, you have elemental powers, cool world building. It is a romantasy, but the story is very, very exciting, and I cannot wait for the third. I had such a fun time with these books. And I just don't know why they don't have hype. The next two books I'm going to talk about are These Hollow Vows and These Twisted Bonds by Lexi Ryan. I want to read more from this author. I loved these books. I think these books also hold a special place in my heart because of the time that I read them. I read these during spring break when I traveled to Turkey to visit where I was going to move. It was a very fun time. These books are so fun. I'm just going to hold up one. These are fast-paced. They're so good. So I'll read the back. Bree would do anything before making a deal with the Fae. Death is preferable to their vicious schemes, but when her sister is taken by a sadistic king of the Unseelie court, there is nothing Bree wouldn't do to get her back, including making a deal with the king himself to steal 3 magical relics from the rival Seelie court. Gaining unfiltered access to the Seelie court is easier said than done. Bree's only choice is to pose as a potential bride for Prince Rowan, the Seelie prince who's not quite as wicked as she once thought. Unwilling to let her heart distract her, she accepts help from a band of unseelie misfits with their own secret agenda. But as Bree spends time with their mysterious leader, Finn, she finds herself struggling to resist his seductive charm. Caught between 2 dangerous courts, Bree must decide who to trust with her loyalty and with her heart. These are very fast-paced. It is a love triangle, tastefully done. I think these books are so good, and I want to read more from this author. I just had a really good time, and I like that this is a duology. I think more fantasy series should be duologies because I think they're really fun and fast-paced. The next book is The Midnight Library, which I feel like I've spoken a lot about, but this book is beautiful. It made me sob. I think that everyone should read this book. It's like It's a Wonderful Life, but better. In this book, we're following Nora. Nora's life has been going from bad to worse. Then, at the stroke of midnight, at her last day on Earth, she finds herself transported to a library, where she is given the chance to undo her regrets and try out each of the other lives she might have lived, which raises the ultimate question: with infinite choices, what is the best way to live? I like this concept of like getting to choose which life you think you would be happiest in, or which decisions you made in your life, how that would alter your future. Or maybe you think that this job is going to make you so happy, and had you gotten that job, your life might have been miserable. Like it's such an interesting concept, and I mean, this book made me sob. It was so good. I felt like parts of this book were just written for me. I loved it, and I already bought like 3 other books by this author, and I can't wait to read more of his work. The next book I don't have physically, but it's because I'm looking for a cool cover of this book. I don't like the cover of this book, but it is The Measure. Similar concept to The Midnight Library. Everyone on Earth has been given a box. One morning, everyone has a box in their front door that contains a string, and that string is the measure of your life. I love the chaos that this causes all over the world. Governments don't know what to do. Scientists are trying to figure out what the length of that string actually means. Some people choose to open their box. Some people choose not to because they don't want to know how much time they have left. And what would you do if you knew you only had so much time to live? Like, how would that change how you live your life? So good. It also made me tear up. It didn't quite make me sob like The Midnight Library, but a very good book that I loved, and I do want a physical copy, just a prettier version. Then I have Hunted by Darcy Coates. I love Darcy Coates, but if you saw my previous video, Dead of Night, Dead of Winter was my least favorite by Darcy Coates, and this might be my new favorite. This is not cozy horror. This has body horror. This has more, I don't know, suspense, twists and turns. I think that this one is very exciting. I think this is her most exciting and grossest book I've read so far. The Haunting of Ashburn House, Gallows Hill, and there's another one, The Haunting of not Hill House. So there's another one that I read by her that is very cozy horror. You're in a haunted house. This has a different feel. This one is gross, and I loved it. 5 days after Aline Huntsberger went missing on a hike through the remote Ashlong Forest, her camera was discovered washed down river containing bizarre photos taken after her disappearance. But with no body and no additional clues, finding Elaine in the dark and winding woods seems next to impossible. Chris wants to believe his sister is still alive. When the police search is abandoned, he and 4 of his friends vow to scour the mountain range until they find Aline and bring her home. But as a small group strays further from the trails and the unsettling discoveries mount, they begin to realize that they're not alone and Aline's disappearance was no accident. But by then, it's already too late. This book was so good. It had many moments that I did not expect. I gasped when reading this book. I was like, oh my god, did that actually just happen? Loved it. If you love Darcy Coates, I recommend this. Or just if you like thriller horror, so, so good. The next books I want to talk about is the Furyborn series. This is a YA fantasy that I think about all the time. I think this might be one of my favorite YA fantasies. As of right now, this series is just it's so good. There's something about YA fantasy that I just love. I especially loved the first book. This might have been the only one that got 5 stars, but the other ones were really high ratings. This is a chunky series, and there's a lot going on in this series. You have to pay attention. It's not the easiest read, but very worth it. And the covers I love. I also tabbed these. I had a really good time reading these. And I think something I really enjoyed about this series is that I went straight from one book into the next. It kept me in the story. I loved that. And I think that's something I really want to try more in 2025 is like finishing a series within a month or trying to, because it just was so fun to just keep going in this story right after another. When assassins ambush her best friend, Riley, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, risks everything to save him, exposing herself as one of a pair of prophesized queens, a queen of light and a queen of blood. To prove she is the Sun Queen, Riley must endure 7 elemental magic trials. If she fails, she will be executed unless the trials kill her first. 1,000 years later, a legend of Queen Riley is a fairy tale to Elena, a bounty hunter of the Undying Empire. Elena believes herself untouchable until her mother vanishes. To find her, Elena joins a rebel captain and discovers that the evil of the Empire's heart is more terrible than she ever imagined. As Riley and Elena's fight in a cosmic war that spans millennia, their stories intersect, and the shocking connection between them ultimately determine their fate of their world and each other. Like I said, this is a series that you need to pay attention to. You're following 2 women that are similar, and you have characters that are in both timelines. So there were times when I would read from one of their POVs and be like, wow, I would forget, like, I'm like, who are we following right now? Or I would get the stories a little bit mixed up. But I just think that the writing was so, so good. And if you like YA fantasy, that has good plot, good characters. It's not just a romantasy that just has tons of romance. Like there's so much going on in this series. I recommend it. I did not expect to love this series so much. Like months after reading it, I realized just how much I really loved this series. So this is one of my top series, I think YA series, and I really recommend it. So good. At the number 1 spot, I have the first 2 books in this series, and that is Red Rising and Golden Sun. I don't understand when people say that they don't like these books. Like if I'm looking for someone to follow on TikTok or YouTube and they say that they don't like these books, I can't. I like, can I trust you if you don't like these books? These books are phenomenal. These books are so, so good. I often wonder if people just don't like these because they don't have romance and they are sci-fi. There's a lot going on. It's so fast-paced and exciting, but like little to no romance. And I really think that that's it. But I don't need romance in my books. I would rather have an amazing story than just read a bunch of romance. I have the 3rd book. I know it's going to be good. My sister already read it. But it's just packed away. I am reading it in 2025, but this is a series I know is just going to break my heart. His wife taken, his people enslaved, driven by a longing for justice and the memory of lost love, Darrow will stop at nothing to bring down his enemies, even if he must become one of them to do so. We're following Darrow, who is a part of the Red people. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but he's a red, and there are different colors. There are green, silvers, golds. Golds are like the best or like the highest ranking people, and the reds are underground. They're the miners. They do all the labor for very little pay, but they're kind of told that like that's all that there is. Above ground, there's nothing. And they're very wrong, because he finds out that there's so much more above ground, that there are different planets. There's this whole world that the Reds are kept in the dark about. And he is going to try to save his people by trying to take down this corrupt government by becoming one of them. In this book, we have a really big competition. It's so exciting. Now, if you really just love romance books and not awesome sci-fi with so many awesome twists and turns and great characters, then I don't understand you. This, I know, will be one of my top favorite series of all time. And I can't wait to continue it, but I'm also very hesitant because I don't want this story to end. This was just going to be a trilogy, and then he continued writing, and thank God, because I want to read all of these books. I cannot wait to read the third. I hope you enjoyed my best 10 books of 2024. I've been dying to make this video, and I had a very fun time picking my top 10, and I really want to make a stats video of this, of my year of 2024. It's coming. I hope. I'm hoping to get that video out soon, but this is the video I was most excited to make. If you're still here and you don't know what to comment, you can comment the fireworks emoji for the new year. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.